Hey y'all, new verses, new section of Matthew. Let's dig into verses 21 through 26 on anger. Here we go. You have heard that our ancestors were told, you must not murder. If you commit murder, you are subject to judgment. But I say, if you are even angry with someone, you are subject to judgment. If you call someone an idiot, you are in danger of being brought before the court. And if you curse someone, you are in danger of the fires of hell. So, if you are presenting a sacrifice at the altar in the temple and you suddenly remember that someone has something against you, leave your sacrifice there at the altar. Go and be reconciled to that person. Then come and offer your sacrifices to God. When you are on your way to court with your adversary, settle your differences quickly. Otherwise, your accuser may hand you over to the judge, who will hand you over to an officer, and you will be thrown into prison. And if that happens, you surely won't be free again until you have paid the last penny. So I want to break this down a little bit. Let's dig into it first with the 22, because there are a lot of footnotes in there. The term idiot's more Aramaic term of contempt if you say to your brother raka, which would essentially be worthless. So it's not just, oh, you're an idiot, it's you calling somebody worthless. I would even say if it's in your heart that you believe they're worthless. Farther down in that, well, I guess we should start probably with the whole, if you're even angry at someone, because some manuscripts add without clause. And I think that the reason it's not in this particular version is because it's not really necessary. Because anger is an event. What we do with it from there determines, okay, you're angry, something set you off. Why? Well, they did this. Okay, can you control that? No. Can you remedy it? No. Can you do anything about it? No. What can you do with that anger then? You can either release it because the event has passed, hold on to it and become angry, or, and I think it's the holding on to it. Because, somebody does something that causes you to be righteously angry. Well, cool. Righteous anger is a good thing. It's recognizing an injustice that needs to be righted. That's not a bad thing in any way, shape, or form. It's what we do with it. Because if righteous anger held on to and stewed in, well, that becomes anger and unrighteous anger. Eventually, it just becomes a place of hate. Because you're no longer focused about wanting to set the wrong right. You're embittered that it's happened at all. And so a solution to it stops seeming possible because you're already so much at odds that it just seems as surmountable an enemy as you have. It's in a sense, mountain out of a molehill, but I think in other ways it's as strong an enemy as we perceive it to be. If you're butting heads against somebody's reasoning over and over and over again, don't get angry and hate-filled. Try and understand them. I think that with here, it's not saying that it's wrong to have something, just set right. When we see somebody do, like, you abused an animal, you hurt a kid, these definitive things, rape, murder, that we understand are just not right. And we're like, no, that needs to be fixed. That's righteous anger. What we do with it is important. Holding on to it, becoming angry, it eventually becomes a place of hate and rage and inevitably wrath. And this is talking as somebody who used to revel in violence and hatred and vitriol rage. And I look out a lot, especially with a lot of anger in the air, especially if you turn on anything related to social media. There is a lot of anger about pick a given subject in many ways. And, yes, I do think the righteous anger is there for a reason. Stewing on it so that it becomes wrath is not. Because at a certain point, the anger becomes so comfortable and so fluid that anything else seems disorienting. That you don't know how to experience joy anymore because anger can't contemplate relaxing and laughing. You get to the point where you seek anything to set you off because it's the only way you can continue to feel any drive in life. It becomes much akin to depression, but instead of being turned inward and inward loathing, it's outward. It's extreme. It's like raging fire that wants to burn everything down. And that's not something I want anyone to experience. And I would honestly hope that no one wants to experience that kind of rage, because it becomes an issue of dramatic control to not attack anyone and everything around you in some way or another, verbally, physically, emotionally. That's what happens in the end when you let anger consume you. So this verse to me, when you don't even, if you're even angry at someone, yeah. Because it leads to a path of hating everyone and everything. And so you're judging everyone and everything. And as we know, when you judge others, you yourself are judged. I think, and it goes down into the rest of this verse, as we'll get to. But I think holding on to anger like that, I know that it poisons the soul. And I think that if we were to actually stop and take a moment and think about just how little we truly know about blood-curdling rage, we'd back away from it for a minute. Because it's like any other emotional extreme. It's an extreme. Further in, when we get to, if you say your brother, you're a fool, if you curse them, you are in the danger of fire of hell itself. And, that doesn't quite work. Because it's not hell, it's Gehenna. And Gehenna is a valley in Israel. And for a Star Trek fan, it's like Temerian. For those who don't get the TNG reference, or the Darmok and Talad Janadra, it's much like in the Valley of the Shadow of Death, Psalm. Yea, through I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. King James, but whatever, it's fun. The Valley of the Shadow of Death is an actual place. And it is a place that travelers wouldn't go because cutthroats, murderers, thieves, it was not a safe place to travel. You had better odds of dying going through that valley than you did anywhere else, kind of thing. It was a valley of death where death was around every corner, lurked in every shadow. And it's a poetic understanding that even if that is not a physical place, but a spiritual place, one where we are emotionally or in our hearts, one where we're struggling with, that it's the same kind of deep metaphor. That it's not just the story of the place that makes understanding, it's the story that gives understanding to what it is to go through the rest of it. I'm in a death's valley at the moment when going through a dark place emotionally. We can understand that because of places where, death was around every corner. And places even now have, countries have places like that. Cities have places like that. If you're a rodent, probably houses have places like that. If you've got cats or dogs that like to go after them. But same here. Gehenna, it's a valley that, yes, the Messiah is supposed to come from. Well, the Messiah is the one saying this. The rest of it, the Battle of Gog and Magog and Final Judgment, it's like, if you are to the point where you're cursing somebody as nothingness, you end up making nothing out of yourself. Which I think kind of loops back to that idea of, if I have, if I give all I have, if I work tirelessly for everybody else, if I do everything for everyone but I don't love, I have nothing. If I do everything there is to be done but don't do it in love, I am nothing. From Paul. And I think it's right here the same idea. And it even reflects down in when you're like, when you are presenting a sacrifice at the altar in the temple and you suddenly remember you have something against somebody, leave your sacrifice at the altar. The translation of it is gift in Greek. So it's like, well, what is a sacrifice? A sacrifice of praise, a moment of coming before the throne. Well, here's Jesus saying, yes, come before the throne. When you come before the throne and you realize there's something that needs to be set right, set it right. And I think it goes into even Hosea 6:6. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. Mercy and setting things right. Those right relationships. And it kind of connects to all this flowing idea of righteousness. Your right standing with people. Well, if your right standing with people is what we just left off on, why would we move into anger? Because anger is one of the first places that we have a tremor, if you will, on human relationships. Because, they did something. Yeah, I'm really pissed about it. I'm going to hold on to it. Screw that guy. What does that accomplish? No, seriously, what does it accomplish? It raises your blood pressure, certainly. But outside of the negative effects for one's own health, which psychologists as well as medical doctors will both say, yeah, not good for you. Outside of that, what does it accomplish? The person that you're pissed at may not know you're pissed at them, and if you haven't communicated it, they certainly don't know it. And even then, they simply may not care. Now, granted, most people do. But going to the almost point of reductio absurdum on the logic there, what does holding on to anger accomplish? Like, we're all task-oriented anymore, so let's go by that kind of reasoning. What does it accomplish? It deteriorates your health, degenerates your mind, it causes one to lose focus. I mean, granted, yes, it enhances their focus. Yes, on the thing they want gone. That's a sociopath eventually, or at least, murder. But what does it accomplish? If the person doesn't know, you're not going to remedy anything. And aggression that, they don't know or don't care, that's passive aggression. It's still aggression. It's still that anger held on to. So what does it accomplish? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, like I said earlier in this, righteous anger is a good thing. It's what we do with it. Because what we do with it is important. Like anything, what we do with it is an important thing. A hammer. You have this. Are you going to build with it or destroy with it? Are you going to help shape, which can involve construction and destruction? Raising cities, making things bigger, recycling, things like this. Or are you going to use it to harm? Same with anger. Are you going to use it to constructively shape a relationship for the better? To help everybody involved grow? Or are you going to hold on to it and let it melt you from the inside out? Because anybody who's studied Viking berserkers will tell you, blood rage is a thing, and when it happens, all that's left with is regret of knowing that kind of control was lost. Continuing down onto, when you're on your way to court with your adversary, settle your differences quickly. Well, I think that even connects into this entire thing. With the law, with righteousness, with right relationships, with anger, because sometimes our mouths will get us into trouble. Sometimes our hands will get us into, it's like, oh crap, I didn't mean to hit him. That'll happen sometimes. Here, same idea though. Whether it's that kind of event, your mouth getting you into trouble, anything like that. You settle it before you hit the court system because people understand inherently that we're all human. Now, we may not all want to recognize it, but I think that's where the difference between somebody who belongs to the Lord and somebody who doesn't kind of starts to shift. Because don't get me wrong, the Lord is very black and white on these things. Right and wrong. Very, very clear on these things. But in the same moment, we must understand He is also the God who meets us in the gray. So yes, he is very stark contrast. He'll meet us in the gray, much like he does with Peter. Peter, do you agape me? Self-sacrificial love. I phileo you. I love you like a brother. Peter, do you agape me? Lord, I phileo you. I love you like a brother. I can't do better than that. I don't know how. And the Lord, Peter, do you love me like a brother? Do you phileo? And Peter breaking down and hugging to him, yes, I phileo. God will meet us. And if you don't want the Greek in that one, how's this? Lord, I believe. Help me with my unbelief. And then Jesus went and did it. Not requiring, this. It's the faith of a mustard seed. That little bit of, okay, I'll trust. Because in situations where wrath is moved in, the question is this of, okay, it doesn't accomplish anything. What do I want to do with it? Well, I want to get rid of it then. Okay. How do you do that? By letting go. And what I mean by that is let go not just of the anger, but of the event. Not to say forget about it, but to stop holding it tightly. To stop existing in the moment of pain. Because, and I think I'll probably do something on this a bit later. But I would just offer, if you don't want to hold on to pain and anger, release it by knowing that what happened, happened. But it didn't take you down. And you are better and stronger for it. Because God has brought you through it. It may not have been a fun event that made you angry. But God is in control. And although it may not seem it for some rough events, it's not an issue of saying, well, why would God allow it to happen? Don't blame God for something humans have been doing forever. Praise God that He gets you through it. Because He knows the pain we're dealing with. He knows the pain you're in. He knows the pain that I'm in. He knows the pain that all of us are in, even when we don't really think there's any pain there. He knows it. He knows us better than we know ourselves. So when there's something that happens and we're like, and we brush it off, but it leaves that little seed, He notices it. He's here. He wants to heal us, and He will. All we have to do is trust Him. Like, well, how can I trust? Simply reach out. Knock and the door shall be open. The Lord wants to be here for everyone. We just need to turn toward Him. To repent, if you will. For the kingdom of heaven is near. God is right here. I will see you guys tomorrow when we move into... Oh, I'm sorry, did I... Yes, we did finish that last bit. I had a note here about the pennies being the last drachma kind of thing. It's like, yeah, we get the idea. You have to settle your issues, settle your differences, because justice is resolved in the end. So, try not to cause yourself problems there. Anyway, I'll see you guys tomorrow for digging into adultery. That should be fun. See you guys then. May His favor be upon you, and know that you are loved.